Hi, I'm Carly Vogel, and I'm here at Vogel's Knockout Martial Arts, and I'm here with Dave Wilson. So, I want to talk about your journey with Modern Arnis.
Modern Arnis? Sure. I started it probably, I'm thinking it was 1990, maybe 1991. I went because I was already working with Professor George Dillman in Riku Kempo, but I had did Kali before, which is Filipino arts. They use different names, but it's all the same, really. So I went and seen Professor Remy Presas, and I was just hooked. I mean, the man it was like going to and seeing a magician. Everything he did, it looked like magic. I was like, well, how in the world does he do that? And he knows what you're going to do before you do it. And I was just hooked, and so I started going to camps and every seminar I could go to. And after a few years, back then he used to have a basic instructor's license. And so I went to that until finally, after a number of years, I finally got my black belt and advanced instructor's license, and just been doing it ever since, Like I said, I do Riku Kempo, and they mix very well. So, but that's how I got started, because I did Kali, and I really enjoyed the sticks and the Filipino martial arts, because it was so non-traditional, where karate and taekwondo kind of traditional, this way, and you wear the uniform. And in Arnis, it was like, well, if you want to wear shorts, you can wear shorts. If you want to wear a uniform, you could wear a uniform. And it was a lot less, I don't want to say structured, but a lot less formal.
Yeah.
It's very informal, and I really enjoyed that part of it. It just made it more accessible, I think, to people that's not used to the discipline of karate or something like that. So yeah, it's a good mix.
Perfect. You told me before we got started that you're a 9th Dan in karate.
I am.
Can
yes.
you tell me a little bit about that, or like what martial arts you have done?
Sure. I started martial arts, gosh, this ages me, in 1974 under Alan McCown in Columbus, Indiana. And it was a Shorin. And after 3 or 4 years, he closed down. So all of us went to Taekwondo, just because that's all that was around, and it was funny, because basically what we did was we learned the katas and tested, because, we did sink kicks, basically, learned a few extra ones, like the jump spinning kicks that you don't do in Shorin. And I was already a kicker anyway, because when I started, my heroes was people like Bill Wallace and Joe Lewis, and I just loved to watch Bill Wallace kick. And so I really, really, really trained hard at getting good at kicking.
Yeah.
And because I liked it. And I thought it was funny, because I'm not that tall. So it was funny when a short guy like me would kick somebody in the face. And I just thought that was hilarious, in competitions. And they wouldn't expect it, because I could get really close to somebody, whack him in the head, and back out. And they're like, well, but we were in punching. And I was like, oh, So I really enjoyed that. But I did that for years. And then I went to see Professor Wally J., the founder of Small Circle Jiu-Jitsu. And because, he trained Bruce Lee on grappling and joint locks and stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll never meet Bruce Lee, of course, because he's gone. But I got to go hang with one of his instructors, and I thought that was cool. Yeah, and I just fell in love with it. And he said, you should go see George Dillman. And I went, really? He said, yeah, if you're a karate guy, you should go see George Dillman with the pressure points. And I thought, that's a bunch of malarkey. That's baloney. I don't believe in that. And, I went and seen George Dillman, and actually back up, my instructor in Riku Kempo, Will Higginbotham, invited me to his house the night before. We spent the night and stayed up way too late. And anyway, I go meet George the next day, and, within a half hour of being there, a 4-hour seminar, he had knocked me out. And I was like going, how did he do that? And, and I thought, wow, this is the magic. This is the real deal. So I started following him, because I was going, it was effortlessly, everybody has nerves. And so I fell in love with that, and so I pursued that more than any other art. Well, then because of the Cali background, George said, well, you should go see Remy. And so I did, and then, like I said, it was just, oh my gosh. And so I had friends that started about the same time as me that they followed Remy all over the world. Where me being a karate guy, I would go when I could, but I was following Dillman, you know. And sometimes I wish I'd have went the other way, but I can't complain because, you know, the older I get, the more I realize the pressure points are great for somebody like me that can't do what you can do. You know, I've watched you work out and going, oh, I used to be able to do that 30 years ago. But you know, but there comes a time in life to where, especially if you're going for the self-defense background instead of the sport, if you're going for that, where you realize you have to go with what's practical. So, you know, me knowing that if somebody gets within this distance of me, I'm going, you know, thank you. And there's a pressure point that I'm going to be able to grab, touch, or hit, right?
Yeah.
And the fight should be over in 30 seconds. I mean, that's just how long a real fight should last. So I'm very blessed to have been able to study with people like George Dillman, Will Higginbotham. He was my instructor. He was like a big brother to me. He passed away a year or two ago. So that broke my heart. But, you know, I still keep in contact with Dillman, even though he doesn't actively teach. And I still go to camps and do what I can do. You know, it's like I consider myself a student. You know, I never thought I would reach ninth dan. Back when I started, you know, first or second degree was the same thing as being, you know, a deity just about, because there wasn't any back then.
Yeah.
So, you know, to have reached and trained and studied and got to the ranks I've got has been a blessing. Now in Arnis, I'm a fourth degree. And Arnis is one of those arts that if you're a belt chaser, is not the art for you. You know, because it's kind of like what they do in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It takes a long time.
Yes.
And if you get the first degree black belt, you're going to be there for years before you ever go to second or third or fourth. And, you know, my teachers now that I study with, you know, they're kind of like, you know, you're a little behind, you know, because of how long you've been in it. And I just didn't test. You know, I was like, I don't care. You know, I'm teaching karate. I'm just doing this because I love it. And then it became an art that I started teaching more and more. And I'm going, yeah, I probably should have tested years ago, you know. Now, but where I'm at, I'm very happy. I cannot complain. There's people that teach Modern Arnis that, you know, have some outrageous ranks that I'm going, you did it half as long as me or my teachers, and you know, but I won't name names, but you know, they go to the Philippines and all of a sudden they come back in 8th dan. It's like, oh, how much money did you spend?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, and that's a shame, but that's okay. You know, like I said, it's just one of those things where it's just not a given to you thing once you go through the ranks. But I always tell people, I go, well, if you make a 1st dan in this, consider yourself a 5th dan and like Shotokan karate, because you probably know more.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, so it's really nice. But Arnis, you know, is a very complete art. Everybody thinks, oh, sticks, when are you going to carry that? Well, I did have to walk the cane for a bit, and I almost hated giving up my cane, you know, because I had a stick with me all the time. My wife goes, you're just taking that to the store now. And I go, yeah, but it's great. I'm an old man, so if somebody attacks me, you know, she goes, you're pitiful. But it's such a complete art because we do the weapons, of course, sticks and blades. It actually started as a blade art years ago, okay? And then, of course, you know, that went to the stick. So some things that we do is just for an impact weapon, and other things that we do, you can tell it's meant for the blade. Yeah. You know. Now, when Professor Presas started this art, he had his family style, and it is very much like in Kung Fu or Okinawan karate. A lot of it was close to family, you know, and people didn't train with other people that much. Professor's family, they did what's called palis, which is go with the flow. And he did that. Then he went to the Balintawak school, which is real famous, and one of the more famous styles of Arnis, but he was also going other places over the islands, because Philippines is not just one island, it's several. And he went all over training with different people and stuff, and he went to the creator of Balintawak and asked him if he could start his own system, and he gave him his blessing. He said, sure, maybe you do what you do, And what the professor did, he did it, and it was a dying art, actually, in the Philippines, and he did it and got it into the school systems over there.
That's cool.
And and revived it kind of as a sport, but it still keeps all the self-defense aspects to it. And so he did that and got it revived. The reason it's called Modern Arnis is because years ago, at least I've been told this, was if you listen to my class, you hear click, 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 and you see everybody hitting the sticks together. Well, in the old days, had a lot to do with their Muslim beliefs, but they thought the sticks were holy, so you didn't hit sticks, you hit arms.
Oh.
Now imagine that. How many classes are you going to come when I hit your arm really hard and break it? Go, see you in 6 months for lesson 2. So, and the professor said that's no good. That's why it's a dying art, because nobody wants to go through that. And so he got where you hit the sticks, and I tell my students, I go, no, we do this, but I go, you would never do that. If somebody swings a stick at you and you got a stick, why would you hit their stick? You would hit their hand, because then the fight's over. Because you break their hand, they drop their weapon, and you just go eat. Remy used to be good at saying, you will beat them and then you will go home and eat these steak and lobster. He was a funny guy. I miss him a lot. But yeah, and so that's how it became what he would call Modern Arnis, because they were hitting the sticks. So he did that, and then there was some political pressure, so he left the country though, but he went all over the world, and he would say is to promote the Philippine culture. And the funny thing about Professor Remy was he never owned a school once he left the Philippines. If you trained with the professor, you went to seminars, you went to like a week-long camp at a time, and he would just travel all over the country. He made America his home, and that's just what you did. You couldn't go train at a school. This week if you wanted to train, you might be here in Indiana, and then next week if you wanted to train, well, you're in Miami, Florida. And like I said, the guys I train with now, my teachers, that's what they did. One of them, I won't go into details, but he spent his retirement, he spent his credit cards maxed out to travel the world to learn from Remy. He was that dedicated. But the thing is, now he's probably, I consider, one of the best Arnis players in the world. And the two people I train with is Professor Chuck Goss and Professor Ken Smith. Like I said, when Remy died, it's a sad thing. Modern Arnis went all these different directions. And everybody goes, oh, I am the successor to the professor. This other guy would say it, and this guy. And the thing is, the proof's in the pudding. I see these guys that claim to be this rank, and they call themselves professor, and they can't do what's called tappy-tappy, which is a counter for counter concept. And that's what Ken and Chuck both, there was 5 of them that Remy promoted to masters of tappy-tappy, and Remy said that's the highest rank you can get. And so then you got these other guys going, well, I am this, and I am that, and I'm a dat too, which dat too in the Philippines means you're a leader of a small tribe. So go figure that out. You're a tattoo or you're a master of tappy-tappy. Which one's a higher rank? Well, you tell me, small tribe or, but, I'm not to judge them, but, and these other guys, they are good, don't get me wrong. But they sometimes say, oh, that tappy-tappy is a sub-art. Well, actually it's not, because everything that is in Arnis is in tappy-tappy. And it's a lot like playing chess, except if we call it driving. If I'm the one driving, what I'm doing is dictating what your next move has to be if you want to try to counter me. So, because I know what you're going to do, I'm already ahead. So then I have a counter for your counter for kind of, it goes, like I'm good enough to maybe be 3 moves ahead. The professor was at least 100 moves, Chuck is at least, and Ken's at least 50 or 60 moves. Because in my mind, there's probably nobody alive as good as the professor was. Well, he created the art,
Yeah.
So that was that part of it. So there's good practitioners. Like I said, it doesn't have to, you don't have to train somebody like Chuck or Ken. There's other good people all over the country, and I'm not going to mention their names, but and some of them are very good. Some of them are just very egotistical, and that's unfortunate. But it's that way in most arts. But the professor never did pick somebody, as far as I know, to go, you will be the one, So I don't know.
Yeah.
But all I know is the professor would want everybody to get together and be kind and speak well of each other and spread the art. Because I don't care if you study with this guy or if you study with this guy. If you're really trying and you're doing what you learned from the professor, well, God bless you. Go show it and promote the art,
Yes.
That's the way I feel about it. Now, is there anything you want to know about the art besides?
So, if, just in case I'm not very educated on Modern Arnis, or how would you describe it to somebody that doesn't know anything about it?
Well, I would tell them that it is a complete self-defense system. It's not meant for tournaments, even though there are people that do it. But if you watch them, it looks really sloppy because they've got these big armors on and they're just flailing the sticks and they're not doing any techniques. They're just who hits each other first, and they're taking hits because they got armor. And in real life, that would be the end of the fight if I hit your arm as hard as I can with my stick. But it's really cool. It's really well rounded because we start with weapons first. For most styles, you do karate, you do taekwondo, then you learn, a bow staff, or you learn a sai, or you learn nunchaku. We start with weapons in the hand from day one, and then we go to empty hand. And what's really cool is most of the things we can do with sticks, which is locking and trapping and stuff, lots of times we do empty-handed. And I'll say this, our empty hand punching looks a lot like boxing. And in Arnis, there's sub-arts, like we call it dirty boxing, where, it looks like boxing, but you couldn't use it in real boxing because you're going to break the rules doing what we do. But we do that. We do joint locks, probably as many as the small circle people would do, or traditional jiu-jitsu, not Brazilian, traditional jiu-jitsu. We do all those things, joint locks, finger locks, wrist locks, arm bars. The groundwork we do is mainly to get up, even though if you take us to the ground, we're going to do stuff, right? That's not our forte, but we know how to get up out of it, if somebody's doing something, because what we would do isn't what they would do like in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where they're going to go, okay, you can't do this, you can't stick your finger here, and you can't do that. Well, if I'm out in that street and somebody takes me to the ground, yes, I can. There's no rules. So we look at that. We do kicks. We only do like maybe 5 or 6 kicks, and they're all low. And because I do Riku Kempo, I put the pressure points into what we do. I don't go in depth as much as I would if I was teaching Riku Kempo, because that's a great big part of that art. But you learn arm points and leg points, body points, and head points. So what we do is a lot of target acquisition. So instead of just going, okay, throw a back fist up here, it's like, okay, well, let's throw a back fist, and I'll just use one for example, and I'll say, hit MUE5, which is a mental nerve right here. I'll drop it on that because you're probably going to get the guy to pass out. If you don't pass out, at least his jaw's going to open up, and you're going to be able to do a follow-up thing. And then, of course, there's the sticks, like I said, and we do a lot of knife defense. I don't teach knife fighting. Like, I won't show people how to do things with a knife. I see things on the interstate. I'm on the interstate, I see this. On the internet, and there's this one guy and girl, and they're doing all this knife stuff, which is usually really slow. But I mean, they're like killing somebody 20 times, and they're drilling going, oh my gosh, if somebody ever sees that and does that, oh, you're going to jail. So we don't do that. Professor asked us not to show a lot of knife things, do a lot of knife defense. Now, being a blade-based art, as far as that stick goes, it's not hard to figure out how to use a knife. Because if I'm thinking of my stick as a machete And machete's a long knife. It doesn't take much for me to figure out, oh, I could probably do that with this little thing.
Yeah.
You know? But that's what we do. We do kata. There's only 8. Most people only probably do 5. And the professor actually started doing those once he came to America, because he came to America, the story I've been told by somebody, you know, and everybody's going, he's doing these seminars and going to all these schools, Taekwondo schools and karate schools. Everybody's like going, what's your kata look like? And he'd be like, oh, we don't do it. But Remy was smart because he was a black belt. He was a 5th degree black belt in Shotokan karate, I believe. And he was 3rd or 4th in judo. So a lot of the forms, we call them anyos. There's some very Japanese and karate looking moves. Yeah. But then there's moves that would look nothing familiar for a karate or a Taekwondo person, because our art is very soft and flowing. We don't do a lot of, when I say hard moves, of course we're hitting some out of the stick, that's a hard move, right? Yeah. But if you was to come at me, I'm not gonna sit there and try to block something, I'm gonna go with the flow, is what we call it. You know, very Aikido-like in certain ways, a lot of our throws are too. So we're not trying to beat a bigger person, you know, it's like, okay, we're gonna use their energy against them, and while they're going past, bop. You know, but it's so fun, and one of the best things about it is like in most martial arts, you're using left and right, but you're going to favor one side or the other, and so do I. Now, in Arnis, we always go weapon side forward, so being right-handed sticks in my right hand. You know, it's like we're southpaws as far as fighting, which was very cool, because when I started karate, it just felt good. And, you know, of course, Bruce Lee did it, and the old kickboxer Joe Louis did it. I always fought right side forward, even when I did tournaments. And because it made sense that, well, my strong, fast hand's up here, you know, so my weak hand's back here for the big heel. And everybody else, you know, they're doing that, and there I'm going, why you got your weak, slow, uncoordinated hand doing all this work, and you're saving the one that's already stronger? So it just made sense to me. Now in Arnis, we do that, so, you know, our stick. But we also, when we reach a certain rank, we'll go where we're mainly doing left-handed stuff or switching hands. Because it's important. What would happen if I hurt my hand? Or what if I was going against an opponent and he's never had a stick in his left hand? Well, I'm gonna put it in my left hand, because they're like going, oh my gosh, what do I do? I'll tell you a funny story that happened to Professor Chuck. Remy hated bullies. You know, if he was doing something to an underrank, oh goodness. And anyway, Chuck was someplace, Remy was watching this guy bully, like maybe an orange belt or something, you know. Chuck's up there, he looks at Chuck and he goes, you will go teach him a lesson. He goes, what? He goes, you know, you will spank him. You'll hurt him. And so Chuck goes over to what we call play, doing stuff, the tappy-tap stuff. And Chuck put in his left hand, the other guy threw his stick down. Chuck goes, what are you doing? He goes, well, you're cheating. He goes, what do you mean I'm cheating? He goes, it's in your left hand. It's kind of like, what? You know, it's crazy. So, you know, but that was funny. You know, the professor, he was a funny guy. And of course, he had a very strong accent. And kids, he loved kids. The kids would get so tickled because their P's and F's are backwards. So he would tell you, you know, you will get with your partner and do your farts. And the kids would lose it, you know. And we're sitting there as adults trying not to. And Remy would be like, why are they laughing? And this one, well, you're saying farts. You know, but he was had great sense of humor, you know, but he was also a no-nonsense guy. He would, being from the Philippines and being in actual real stick fights, and when I say real stick fights, no pads, no rules. It was, you know, challenge and what happened. We'll leave it at that. But Remy would take nothing from nobody. And, you know, of course, we all showed him the utmost respect, you know, and it was just like, oh my gosh, it's the professor. But he was very loving and kind. He would help anybody out that he could.
Yeah.
And he wanted to make sure you got it, you know, and when you did, he would go, you got it, baby. That's what he would say, you know. He would tell here's a funny story too. We was at a camp, and a bunch of the Dillman guys got up to do some knockouts. And, you know, he would tell somebody, and he would do this with sticks too. He would look at you and go, oh, what you did was the best. And usually you knew he was telling a fib if he did this, and then looked at you. And then he would maybe look over at your mom and go, oh, what you did was the best. Of course, she was already gone by then, but he would tell fighters, oh, you did the best. You know, because he wanted to bring everybody up, you know. And I never really heard him say a bad thing about any other arts or anything. In fact, the way he would promote Modern Arnis, though, was he would call it, and this is the way they did it in Black Belt magazine, he would say it was the art within your art. And, you know, 3 of my students back there, you know, taking either Taekwondo or Wing Chun Kung Fu, and we'll do stuff, and all of a sudden they'll have like this light bulb moment when they go, we do that. And I go, of course you do it. All martial arts are the same. That's what the professor would say, you know, and they are basically, you know. Bruce Lee said, you know, there's only so many moves you can do, because unless you've got 8 arms and 8 legs, we all throw the same punches, throw the same kicks. And the professor was genius showing that, oh no, you can do this in your art. And so a lot of schools, they would add Modern Arnis to it, but it wouldn't be their main art, you know, but they would integrate it in, you know, maybe they just only did the stick part of it. Or maybe if they, like say a Taekwondo school didn't punch as much, they would add the punching into it and stuff. Or if it was a karate school that didn't do joint locks, they would, you know, get the joint locks in. So it was really cool, because a lot of schools all over the country didn't become Modern Arnis schools. There's probably very few of them around, really. But they would add it to their art as let's add this into it, because there was so much value in it.
Yeah.
You know, Dan Anderson, he's on the West Coast. You know, he was known as Super Dan, and he was ready, you know, really winning championships and stuff before he met the professor. But after he met the professor, his footwork was so much better, you know, and so it just helped him. And he would tell you, he said, oh yeah, I just made my karate better, you know, and that's the thing on it. If somebody's taking another martial art, but they want to become more well-rounded, it's perfect, because as far as I'm concerned, it's probably the most well-rounded art I've ever seen. You know, like I said, I'll always be a karate guy, but just because I've been in it 50-some years, that's a hard thing to say, isn't it? 50-some years doing karate, but yeah, Arnis is probably the most well-rounded art. I'm just going to say it because we've got weapons and the empty hand. Like I said, our empty hand punches are like boxers. We've got all the joint locks of a jiu-jitsu person, and several throws, not a lot, but several throws. And Remy was a master of a foot sweep. You'd just be standing there, and boom, you'd be on your butt, you know. And a little bit of ground fighting, not much. Like I said, a little bit. We know how to get people there, and some locks to do once they're down. But the idea was to get back up, you know, especially in an art where you're learning about sticks and blades, because if you're on the ground, you know, and you think, oh, I am good at jiu-jitsu, I'm okay. And the guy pulls his knife and stabs you on the ground, because you ain't gonna see that. Oh, where's your jiu-jitsu now? So you should have been up. Maybe you wouldn't got stabbed. You know, and that's the thing. So it really prepares you for a lot of things, especially when you get good at the freestyle tappy stuff, because it translates to empty hand, where I'm gonna do something, and depending on our positioning, how close I am, I know what you almost have to do. You know, and if you don't do it, because we do this thing called baiting, and I try to tell my guys back there, I go, okay, you throw this, okay, it's kind of like you know, you're setting somebody up, right? But the thing is, it's an attack actually, you know. So if they don't get their hand up, they just got hit with the end of the stick or with your hand. And if they did get their hand up, great. Now I can lock them, or I'm going to slap it off and do my head anyway and make a fool out of them. You know, the professor is so funny. He used to say this all the time. He would say, well, you know, you must punish them. And you go, what do you mean, Professor? He said, well, if they touch you, you must hit them. I'm like, oh, okay. And he goes, and you know, if they try to strike you, oh, yeah, you must hit them. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, if they throw the kick, I'll go, let me guess. Oh, yes. You know, he said, you will punish them because they tried to hurt you, so you must punish them, you know, or punish them, I guess. But you know, he was just adamant about that is do it quick. And, you know, you're your own person, so don't let nobody do it. Yeah. Now, you know, he would tell people, you know, this is America, you know, they do this, you should run away. But the professor would never run away. Yeah. You know, of course, like I said, that's just because he was a Filipino guy. Yeah. So, you know, coming here was I'm sure eye-opening to him. But you know, I'm so glad he shared the culture, and like I said, his sense of humor was just hilarious. Yeah. One time he was doing a seminar up in Indianapolis, and I had some shirts made, and it had the Arnis little symbol, and I had the state of Indiana put in it, and it said Southern Indiana Modern Arnis. And he had some big shot friends come in for the thing, you know, and he was wanting to impress them, which he impressed anybody. As soon as he hit the mat, it was just like, whoa, yeah. There he is. And he comes up to me and goes, Mr. Wilson. I don't know why he called me. He usually called me instead of David. He was either David or Mr. Wilson. And he goes, your service? I said, yes, sir. He goes, how much are they? And I said, oh, well, for you, free. You know, take a couple. What size you need? And he goes, no. He said, decapita. I said, decapita. How much did you pay for him? Oh, and I told him, I forgot what he was. He goes, I would take all of your large and extra large. He goes, per capita only. And just slapped his leg, started laughing. You know what he was doing? He was giving them to all these people that he knew. You know, I'm sitting there going, I want my $5 a shirt, you know. Yeah. So it was funny. And then another time we was out to eating, and a good friend of mine, Terry Hill, he teaches in Bedford, Indiana. The professor's eating. The professor looks over at Terry's food. The professor's eating. He goes, Teddy, you should try this. Terry goes, oh, it's okay, Professor, I'm good at this. He goes, no, you will taste. So, you know, Terry got a little bite, and he goes, no, I'll have some of yours, and scooped this whole plate on it and said, thank you very much. And Terry's like, but you tried his, so, yeah, so funny stuff. He was just a funny guy, but like I said, he would take you under his wing and lift you up like you should be doing as a martial artist, and it was wonderful. I miss him tremendously. Yeah. I'm thankful too that I have such good teachers now. You know, I see Chuck several times a year. He has big camps up in Michigan, and they have some camps up in Mooresville, Indiana. And the nice thing is, because you've got people from all these different martial arts that goes and takes the class, you know, and then goes back and teaches the art. So it's very good, because the professor would want you to do that. You know, if you'd only been to one campus, he would say, no, you go back and you will teach. And you have to, because if you don't come back and work on it, you lose it. Yeah. You know, I'm sure you know, if you go to a training camp and you don't come back and whoop up on somebody with what you learned, that skill's gone. Yes. So you have to practice it, right? And it's the same thing with anything. That's the way it is. If you go see, you know, Chuck or Ken, you come back and I try to work with it, you know, somebody. And that's the way it was when I studied under the professor, and I was just real blessed. And he said, oh, no, you will teach this. I said, yeah, I'll show him something. No, you will teach me. Yes, sir. I will do it, you know. And you could tell if you did, because when you went to the next camp, your skill level was rising or it wasn't. You know, it's just like I'm sure you know, teaching Taekwondo, you know who goes home and practices, who's stretching, and who is not. Exactly. You know, I teach guitar up in Columbus, and the same thing. I've got students that's just, yes, they've worked, and students where I'm going,
Yep.
This is the longest half hour of my life.
Yes.
Because they're not practicing.
Yes.
But I'll teach anybody as long as, you know, they've got good character. And if they don't, I won't. You know, or if I find out they, now I'm an old man, mind you, but if I find out somebody's used stuff I've taught them in a bad way, they will usually get a free private class and told they're not allowed to ever come back. I'll just put it as nicely as I can with that.
Yeah.
You know, if I find out somebody's been out doing stuff, I don't just kick them out. As the professor says, I will punish them. And then kick them out. You know, I don't care if you just pay. It's not too bad. No refunds.
Yeah. Yeah.
The lesson you just got probably is worth several months of classes. But, you know, like I said, I'm just a firm believer in nonviolence as much as you can do it. But, you know, like the movie Roadhouse, you know, you're nice until it's time not to be nice.
Yeah.
And I would rather be able to defend myself than not. You know, and like I said, I'm 65 years old, and I still feel good. I'm sure there's things that is wrong in my body that's come from stupid training when I was young, but I still feel confident. I mean, I can walk down the street and I'm not worried if somebody's going to jump me.
Yeah.
You know, and I like knowing that I can protect somebody else. You know, my wife or grandchild or whoever.
Yeah.
You know, that I could do that and I don't have to be afraid. You know, because like I said, it's not sport. So, and don't get me wrong, I loved competing back in the days and doing sport karate.
Yeah.
You know, but then when I met like Delman and Walla J and Remy, I realized, oh, I don't know much about the real world.
Yeah.
And so it really opened my eyes, you know. And for a while I still did some sport stuff, but then as I got older and stuff, you know, I just went more and more and more. And now when I worked in jail too, you know, it was a great teacher. I found out what was bullcrap and what was real right away.
Yeah.
You know, because them guys, you know, every once in a while weren't playing.
Yeah.
You know, they're not slap boxing or putting on the pads, you know.
Exactly.
They did not want to go in that jail cell. Maybe they was methed up, and which is different when somebody's high than just a normal person. And then some people were just mean.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. So I don't tell everybody they should go work in a jail, but I go, oh, you think you're bad? Go work in a bad jail.
Yeah.
You know, there's good jails and bad jails, but I go, you know, do that or get in law enforcement, and right away you're gonna find out, oh, that don't work.
Yeah.
This worked pretty good, so I'm not teaching that no more. You know.
Yeah.
That's a stupid joint lock. That don't work on nobody for real. So yeah. So like I said, I like the sports stuff, but it's also important, I think, to know the real.
Yeah.
That's what we call the real. You know, I tell my guys in my room back there where I teach it all the time, I go, look, in real, you're probably not going to have sticks, so you got to get really good at this empty hand stuff. You know, but the stick, the nice thing about training the stick is when you get better at it, it travels so much faster than a hand or a foot. Yeah. The stick does. So you get used to somebody swinging a stick really fast at you. Punches and stuff looks a little slower. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you watch the movies and they're fighting and the punches come. That's almost how it feels. It's not.
Yeah.
But because I can't throw a back fist as quick as I could swing a stick real quick, it's helped a lot. So I tell people all the time, if you're into sport karate, it's going to help your reflexes out on the mat because you got used to seeing the stick come really fast. You know, right now my guys aren't very advanced yet, but they're getting there, and so they're not, you know, I'm always having to go slow down because they can hurt each other. And because you know, you've heard the saying, you know, what is it? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Yes. And so it works because speed is easy to get. You know, but if you're doing a technique fast and it's sloppy, it's going to stay sloppy.
Yeah.
It's not going to get any better. So if you're going slow, where everybody in the room can see, oh, that's slop, you need to change something, it helps you. And then as you get better, you start going faster and faster and faster until finally you can go really fast. And I don't know, it's just an awesome thing. But that's that.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time out of the day. And
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I loved learning about all the different little things, hearing the stories and all of that. So
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely.